The morning mist clung to the Oregon coastline like gossamer threads, and Dr. Kira Thane found herself oddly mesmerized by its ethereal dance. On Nexara, weather patterns were precisely controlled, each atmospheric shift calculated and predictable. This chaos was both disturbing and strangely beautiful. She adjusted the neural dampener hidden beneath her carefully styled auburn hair and checked her reflection in the rental car's mirror one final time. The human appearance her people's biotechnology had crafted was flawless. Warm brown eyes instead of her natural silver, soft pink lips rather than the pale blue of her kind, and skin with the proper temperature and texture. Even her heartbeat had been altered to match human rhythms. The small coastal research station came into view, a weathered building that seemed to grow from the rocky shoreline itself. According to her files, Dr. Marcus Reed was 32, recently, divorced and spent most of his time studying marine ecosystems, perfect for observation. Isolated enough that her occasional behavioral anomalies might go unnoticed, yet providing access to human social structures. Marcus emerged from the building as she parked, and Kira felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. A malfunction in her biosuit, surely. He was taller than his photograph suggested, with sun-bleached hair and arms marked by tiny scars that spoke of hands-on work. His smile was genuine as he approached, and she found herself cataloging. The micro-expressions that her training had taught her were indicators of trustworthiness. "You must be Kira," he said, extending a hand. "Welcome to the edge of the world." His palm was rough with calluses, warm and slightly damp from the ocean air. The contact sent an odd sensation up her arm that she quickly suppressed. "Thank you for offering the room, Dr. Reed. I know it was short notice." "Marcus, please, and don't worry about it. I could use the company and the extra income." He gestured toward the building. "Fair warning, though, it's not exactly luxury accommodations. The hot water's temperamental, and you'll be sharing space with whatever sea creatures I'm currently studying." As they walked inside, Kira activated her internal recording systems. The space was cluttered but clean, filled with an eclectic mix of scientific equipment, weathered furniture, and photographs of marine life. Books were stacked on every available surface, and a half-finished meal sat on the kitchen counter. "Sorry about the mess," Marcus said, quickly clearing papers from the couch. "I wasn't expecting... Well, I thought you'd be more... professor-like." "Professor-like?" Kira tilted her head, genuinely curious about the distinction. "You know, older, tweed jacket, thick glasses." He grinned sheepishly. "You look more like someone who should be surfing than studying." "What was it again?" "Cultural anthropology." "Human social dynamics and emotional responses," she corrected, then caught herself. "As they relate to environmental stressors," she added quickly. Marcus nodded, though something flickered in his eyes. "Right. Well, your room's upstairs. Nothing fancy, but it has a great view of the water." As he led her up the narrow staircase, Kira found herself studying the way he moved, confident but unhurried, his body adapted to the rhythm of tides and weather. On Nexara, movement was efficient, purposeful. This human casualness was intriguing. The room was small but adequate, with a window that framed the endless expanse of the Pacific. "It's perfect," she said, meaning it more than she expected. "Great. Dinner's usually around 7 if you want to join me. Nothing fancy, probably just whatever fish I caught this morning." He paused at the doorway. "Hey, Kira. Thanks for choosing this place. Gets pretty quiet out here sometimes." After he left, Kira sat on the simple bed and activated her quantum communicator. Her supervisor's face materialized in the air before her, sharp features arranged in the familiar expression of mild disapproval. "Initial contact established, Commander." "Well," she reported, "the subject appears suitable for extended observation." "Remember, Dr. Thane, you are there to study, not to participate. Human emotions are a contamination we cannot afford." As the connection ended, Kira looked out at the churning ocean and wondered why that warning felt more like a challenge than a directive. 3 weeks into her assignment, Kira was beginning to understand why her people considered human behavior so chaotic. Marcus operated on no discernible schedule, ate meals at irregular intervals, and seemed to make decisions based on something he called gut feelings, a concept that defied all logical analysis. This morning was no different. She found him in the kitchen at dawn, humming tunelessly while scrambling eggs with what appeared to be kelp. "Breakfast experiment," he explained, noticing her stare. "The kelp's got this amazing mineral content. Want to try?" On Nexara, meals were precisely calculated nutrition pods. The idea of combining random ingredients for pleasure rather than efficiency was fascinating. "I suppose I could sample it." Marcus beamed and loaded a plate for her. As she took her first bite, the flavors exploded across her palate in ways she hadn't expected. The eggs were creamy and rich, the kelp adding a briny complexity that made her enhanced taste receptors sing. "This is..." She paused, searching for the proper analytical term. "Surprisingly effective. High praise from someone who usually eats like a robot," Marcus laughed. "Seriously, Kira, do you ever just enjoy food? I've watched you eat the same granola bar for lunch every day since you got here." She stiffened. Had her cover been compromised? "I prefer consistency in my nutritional intake." "Right. But where's the joy in that?" He leaned against the counter, studying her with those impossibly blue eyes. "When's the last time you did something just because it felt good?" The question sent an unexpected tremor through her neural pathways. On Nexara, actions were performed for efficiency, for progress, for the betterment of their crystalline civilization. The concept of pleasure for its own sake was foreign. "I don't understand the question," she said finally. Marcus's expression softened. "Come on. After you finish your field notes today, we're going on an adventure." The adventure, as it turned out, involved hiking to a secluded tide pool Marcus had discovered during his research. The path was treacherous, requiring them to navigate wet rocks and steep drops, and Kira found herself relying on Marcus's steady hand more than once. "See that?" Marcus pointed to a cluster of sea anemones swaying in the shallow water. "Most people just see pretty colors, but look closer." Kira knelt beside him, activating her enhanced vision. The anemones weren't just beautiful. They were conducting an intricate dance of chemical communication, their movements coordinated in patterns that spoke of complex social structures. "They're talking to each other," she breathed. "Exactly. Everything in the ocean is connected, communicating in ways we're just beginning to understand." Marcus glanced at her. "Kind of like how you seem to see things the rest of us miss." Her pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" "You notice patterns, connections that would take me weeks to spot. Yesterday you predicted that storm 3 hours before. The Weather Service issued their warning. And don't get me started on how you somehow knew exactly which tide pools would have the best specimens." Kira's internal alarms were screaming. She was revealing too much, allowing her superior senses to show through her human facade. "I'm just observant." "Observant doesn't cover it." Marcus moved closer, and she caught his scent. Salt air, clean sweat, and something uniquely him that made her biosuit's temperature regulation struggle. "Sometimes I feel like you're studying all of us from the outside, like you're not quite..." "Not quite what?" The words came out sharper than intended. "Human," he said quietly. For a moment, silence stretched between them except for the rhythmic crash of waves. Kira's training screamed at her to deflect, to laugh off his suspicion, to maintain her cover at all costs. Instead, she found herself staring into his eyes, seeing not the simple research subject she'd expected, but a man whose intuition ran deeper than her people had ever credited humans with possessing. "That's ridiculous," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Marcus reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek. "Is it? Because sometimes when you look at the ocean, or taste something new, or laugh at one of my terrible jokes, there's this expression on your face, like you're experiencing everything for the first time." His touch sent cascades of sensation through her nervous system that had nothing to do with her biosuit's programming. This was something else entirely. Something her people had no words for because they'd engineered it out of their species generations ago. "Marcus, Dr. Reed." The voice cut through the moment like a blade. They turned to see a woman in an expensive suit picking her way carefully across the rocks toward them. Kira's enhanced hearing caught the steady ping of a quantum communicator, and her blood turned to ice. "Professor Hathaway," Marcus said, confusion clear in his voice. "What are you doing here?" The woman smiled, but Kira could see the calculation behind her eyes. "Just checking on our research grant recipients, making sure you're getting good use out of your assistant." But Kira knew better. This was no human professor. This was Commander Vel Taschen, and her early arrival meant only one thing. Kira's emotional contamination had been detected. The experiment was about to become far more dangerous than she'd ever imagined. The storm hit 3 days after Commander Vel's unexpected visit, trapping Kira and Marcus in the research station as winds howled and waves crashed against the reinforced windows. Kira had managed to convince her superior that her research was proceeding according to protocol, but the lie sat heavy in her chest. Another human emotion she wasn't supposed to possess. "Power's out," Marcus announced, emerging from the basement with a flashlight. "Backup generators running, but we should conserve energy. Good thing I stocked up on candles." The soft glow of candlelight transformed the cluttered space into something almost magical. Kira found herself studying the way shadows danced across Marcus's face as he moved around the room, lighting more candles. On Nexara, illumination was constant and clinical. This flickering warmth created an atmosphere that made her biosuit's emotional dampeners work overtime. "You're staring again," Marcus said softly, settling beside her on the couch with 2 steaming mugs of tea. "I'm observing," she corrected, accepting the mug gratefully. The warmth seeped through her palms and she realized she'd been cold without knowing it. "Right. Observing." His smile was gentle but knowing. "What conclusions have you drawn about human behavior during extreme weather events?" The question was innocent enough, but something in his tone made her pause. Since Vel's visit, Marcus had been asking more pointed questions, watching her more carefully. He suspected something, but she couldn't determine how much. "Humans display increased bonding behaviors during stressful situations," she said carefully. "Shared adversity creates stronger social connections." Textbook answer. Marcus shifted closer and she caught that scent again, the one that made her neural pathways fire in ways that had nothing to do with her mission. "But what do you feel about it?" "Feel?" The word came out strangled. "Kira, you've been here 6 weeks and I've never seen you react emotionally to anything. Not once. You analyze, you categorize, you file everything away like data points." His hand found hers on the couch cushion. "But you never just experience." The contact sent electricity through her system, and she found herself unable to pull away. "Perhaps I'm simply more reserved than most humans." "Are you?" Marcus's thumb traced across her knuckles, and she felt her carefully constructed composure beginning to crack. "Because right now your pulse is racing, your pupils are dilated, and you're breathing faster. Those are physiological responses to emotional stimuli." Panic flooded through her. He was reading her like one of his research subjects, cataloging her responses with the same scientific precision she'd been trained to use on him. "I don't know what you're implying." "I'm not implying anything, I'm asking directly." His free hand cupped her face, turning her to meet his gaze. "Who are you really, Kira?" The question hung between them like a challenge. Every protocol she'd been taught screamed at her to deflect, to maintain her cover, to complete her mission. But staring into Marcus's eyes that held no judgment, only curiosity, and something that made her chest tight, she found herself wavering. "I'm exactly who I said I am," she whispered, but even she could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "Are you?" His thumb brushed across her lower lip and she gasped at the sensation. "Because sometimes I catch you looking at the simplest things. Rain. On the windows, a sunset. The way coffee smells in the morning like you've never seen them before. Like you're cataloging experiences instead of living them." He was too perceptive, too intuitive. Her people had underestimated human observational skills, assuming their emotional nature would cloud their judgment. They'd been wrong. "Marcus, Thunder crashed overhead and the generator stuttered. In the moment of darkness that followed, something shifted between them. When the backup power kicked in, Marcus was closer, his hand still cradling her face, his eyes dark with an intensity that made her biosuit's temperature regulation fail entirely. "Tell me I'm wrong," he said quietly. "Tell me you're just a graduate student studying human behavior and I'll drop it." She opened her mouth to lie, to maintain her cover, to protect her mission. Instead, she found herself leaning into his touch, her eyes fluttering closed as every defense mechanism she'd been programmed with crumbled under the weight of something she was finally beginning to understand. "I can't," she breathed. "Can't what?" "Tell you you're wrong." The admission felt like stepping off a cliff. "Because you're not." Marcus's sharp intake of breath was the only sound besides the storm. When she opened her eyes, he was staring at her with a mixture of wonder and something that made her newly awakened heart race. "Then what are you?" he asked, but his voice held no fear, only fascination. Before she could answer, before she could reveal the truth that would change everything, between them Marcus's lips found hers. The kiss was gentle at first, questioning, but when she responded, when she finally allowed herself to feel instead of analyze, it deepened into something that shattered every wall she'd built around her emotions. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Kira realized that her research had taken an irreversible turn. She wasn't studying human love anymore. She was experiencing it. And the implications of that discovery would either save her or destroy everything she'd ever known. "Whatever you are," Marcus whispered against her forehead. "I don't care. I just know that I'm falling for you, and it terrifies me." As she curled into his arms, listening to his heartbeat sync with her own artificially regulated rhythm, Kira realized that terror was exactly what she was feeling too. But for the first time since arriving on Earth, she wasn't trying to suppress it. She was embracing it. 2 months after the storm, Kira had stopped pretending she was merely observing human behavior. Every morning began with Marcus's sleepy smile. Every evening ended with stolen kisses in the lab while analyzing water samples. She'd crossed every line her training had established, and for the first time in her existence, she felt truly alive. "The kelp forest data is incredible," Marcus said, spreading charts across their shared workspace. "Look at these growth patterns. It's like they're responding to something we can't measure." Kira leaned over his shoulder, her enhanced vision immediately picking up the subtle correlations he'd missed. The kelp wasn't just growing randomly, it was forming communication networks, responding to electromagnetic frequencies that human instruments couldn't detect. Her people's presence in Earth's oceans was having unintended consequences. "Fascinating," she murmured, careful to keep her analysis appropriately limited. "Have you considered atmospheric pressure variations?" "Atmospheric pressure doesn't..." Marcus paused, studying the data again. "Actually, that's brilliant. How did you see that connection?" Before she could fabricate an explanation, her quantum communicator vibrated against her ribs. The sensation meant only one thing: emergency contact from Nexara. Her blood chilled as she recognized the priority code. "I need to make a call," she said quickly. "Academic advisor check-in." Marcus nodded absently, already absorbed in recalculating his models. Kira slipped outside, activating her communicator behind the research station where the electromagnetic interference from the building would mask her signal. Commander Vell's hologram materialized, but she wasn't alone. 3 members of the High Council flanked her, their crystalline features arranged in expressions of cold disapproval. "Dr. Thane." Vell's voice carried the weight of formal judgment. "You have been recalled to Nexara immediately." "Recalled? My research period isn't complete for another." "Your research period ended the moment you began experiencing emotional contamination," interrupted Councilmember Zix, her silver eyes glittering with disgust. "We have been monitoring your biometric feeds. Your neural chemistry has been compromised beyond acceptable parameters." Kira's heart, the heart she'd grown to treasure, hammered against her ribs. "I can explain. The emotional responses are necessary for comprehensive study. To understand human behavior, You needed to complete your observations and return with data," Vel cut her off. Instead, you have become infected with their weakness. You have formed an attachment to your subject. His name is Marcus, Kira said, surprised by the defiance in her own voice. And what I've learned about human emotion isn't weakness, it's complexity beyond our understanding. The council members exchanged glances that spoke of predetermined decisions. Council member Rath leaned forward, his ancient features carved from living crystal. Dr. Thane, you will terminate your cover identity immediately and return to the extraction point. A transport vessel is already en route. And if I refuse? Refusal is not an option, Zix said coldly. You are a citizen of Nexara, bound by our laws and our purpose. You will complete the memory extraction process to remove all traces of emotional contamination, then resume your duties. Memory extraction. They wanted to erase Marcus, erase everything she'd felt and learned and become. The thought sent ice through her veins. I need time to conclude my research properly, she said carefully. To extract my equipment without arousing suspicion. You have 48 hours, Vel stated. Do not test our patients further, Dr. Thane. The consequences for a citizen who abandons their duty are severe. The connection terminated, leaving Kira alone with the sound of waves and the weight of an impossible choice. Return to Nexara and lose everything that mattered, or stay and face exile, assuming they would even allow her that option. Kira. Marcus's voice made her spin around. He stood in the doorway, concern etched across his features. Everything okay? You look like you've seen a ghost. She stared at him, this human who had unknowingly given her a soul, and felt something crack inside her chest. How could she explain that in 48 hours, she might cease to exist as the person he'd fallen in love with? Marcus, she said, slowly, what would you do if you had to choose between everything you'd ever known and the person you loved? He stepped closer, his hands finding her shoulders. That's easy. I'd choose love every time. His thumb brushed away a tear she hadn't realized she'd shed. Why? What's wrong? Looking into his eyes, Kira realized that her research had taught her something her people could never understand. Some choices weren't about logic or duty or the greater good. Some choices were about the courage to become who you were meant to be, even if it meant losing who you used to be. I need to tell you something, she whispered, about who I really am. Marcus's expression grew serious, but his hands remained steady on her shoulders. I'm listening. As night fell around them, Kira began to speak, finally ready to share the truth that would either save them both or destroy everything they'd built together. The revelation should have broken them. Marcus sat in stunned silence for nearly an hour after Kira finished explaining her true origins, her mission, and the impossible choice now facing her. She watched emotions play across his face: shock, betrayal, wonder, and something that might have been fear. So you're telling me, he said finally, his voice carefully controlled, that you're an alien researcher who was sent here to study human emotions like lab rats, and now your people want to lobotomize you because you fell in love with me? Put so bluntly it sounded absurd even to her. That's an accurate summary, yes. Marcus stood and walked to the window, staring out at the ocean that had brought them together. Kira remained motionless on the couch, afraid that any movement might shatter the fragile thread holding them together. Show me, he said quietly. What? Show me what you really look like. Kira's hands trembled as she reached for the neural dampener hidden in her hair. The device deactivated with a soft hum, and she felt her biosuit's camouflage systems powering down. Her auburn hair shifted to deep violet, her brown eyes lightened to silver, and her skin took on the faint, luminescent quality of her people. When Marcus turned around, his breath caught. In the candlelight, she looked ethereal, otherworldly, but unmistakably still the woman he'd fallen in love with. You're beautiful, he breathed, and the sincerity in his voice made her chest tight. How could your people think emotion makes you weak when it makes you so much more than you were? Before she could answer, her communicator buzzed with an urgent message. The transport ship had arrived early. She had 6 hours, not 48. "They're here," she whispered, her enhanced hearing picking up the low thrum of Nexaran engines, cloaked offshore. "Marcus, come with me," he said suddenly, crossing to her and taking her hands. "There's something you need to see." He led her down to the beach, where the waves lapped gently at the shore under a canopy of stars. In the distance, Kira could make out the shimmering outline of the transport vessel, waiting to take her home to a life that no longer felt like hers. 3 months ago, my ex-wife told me I was emotionally unavailable, Marcus said, his arms encircling her from behind. She said I cared more about my research than building a real connection with another person. She was right. Kira leaned back against his chest, memorizing the feeling of his heartbeat against her spine. "Then you arrived and everything changed. You made me see patterns I'd never noticed, not just in the ocean but in myself. You taught me what it meant to really observe someone, to care about their thoughts and feelings and dreams." He turned, her in his arms. "If that's what love does, then your people are fools to throw it away. They'll never stop looking for me," she said. "If I stay, if I choose you, we'll never have a normal life." "Normal is overrated." Marcus cupped her face in his hands. "Besides, I'm a marine biologist dating an alien researcher. Normal sailed out the window months ago." Despite everything, Kira laughed. "You make it sound simple." "Maybe it is." His forehead rested against hers. "I love you, Kira Thane of Nexara. I love your brilliant mind, your curiosity about everything, the way you analyze my terrible cooking like it's haute cuisine. I love the person you've become here, with me." The transport vessel's engines grew louder, and Kira knew Commander Vel would soon come looking for her. She had minutes to make a choice that would determine the course of 2 lives. "I love you too," she whispered, and felt the last of her old self dissolve. "Marcus Reed of Earth, you've taught me what it means to be alive." He kissed her then, deep and desperate and full of promise. When they broke apart, Kira made her decision. "I'm staying," she said, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what she was choosing. "I'm staying, and we're going to build something incredible together." "What about your people?" Kira looked out at the transport vessel, then back at Marcus. "Let them come. They wanted to study human emotions. Well, they're about to get a master class in what happens when love refuses to be analyzed, categorized, or erased." She reached for her communicator one final time, activating the emergency beacon that would summon every human authority Marcus could contact. If her people wanted her back, they'd have to explain themselves to an entire planet of beings they'd underestimated. "Are you sure about this?" Marcus asked. Kira smiled, her silver eyes reflecting the starlight. "I've never been more sure of anything in my existence. I came here to study what makes humans human. It turns out it's the same thing that makes anyone truly alive: the courage to choose love over fear, connection over isolation, growth over stagnation." As sirens wailed in the distance and the transport vessel's engines began to fade, Kira and Marcus stood together on the beach where she'd first learned to feel. Whatever came next, they would face it together. 2 researchers who had discovered that the most important experiment was the one that taught you who you really were. Above them, the stars bore witness to a love that had bridged the gap between worlds, proving that some forces in the universe were too powerful to be contained by the boundaries of species, duty, or fear. The real research, Kira realized, was just beginning.